welcome back to Insects for Fun. I'm your host, Mitchell Logan, and today we are doing a garden episode, specifically about one of the most frustrating insects any home gardener or farmer in the eastern United States will encounter. If you grow cucumbers, squash, zucchini, pumpkins, melons, or really anything in the gourd family, you have almost certainly met today's subject, and you probably didn't enjoy the experience. Today we're covering cucumber beetles, the small bright yellow beetles with black stripes or spots that show up every summer to eat your plants, spread disease, and try to ruin your season. So when people say cucumber beetle, they're usually talking about one of two species. And it's worth knowing the difference because they behave slightly differently and have different host ranges. The first is the striped cucumber beetle, Acalymma vittatum. This one has 3 distinct black stripes running the full length of its yellow-green body. It's got a black head, and here's a useful identification tip, a black underside to the abdomen. It's about 5 to 8 millimeters or roughly 1/4 of an inch, and the striped cucumber beetle is the more common and more damaging of the two across most of the northern and eastern US. It overwinters in the northeast, meaning it survives cold winters by hiding in leaf litter and debris, and comes out early in spring, ready to cause trouble from the moment your seedlings emerge. The second beetle we're going to talk about is the spotted cucumber beetle, Diabrotica undecimpunctata. This one has 12 black spots on a yellow-green body and a yellow-green underside. That underside color is actually one of the best ways to tell it apart from the striped beetle. The spotted cucumber beetle is also known as the southern corn rootworm in its larval stage, which tells you something about how widespread its damage is. It's a bit more of a generalist than the striped beetle. Adults have been recorded feeding on over 50 different crops and wild plants, including corn, beans, potatoes, and even roses. Both species belong to the family Chrysomelidae, the leaf beetles, which is one of the largest beetle families in the world with over 37,000 species. You might recognize some relatives too, like the Colorado potato beetles, flea beetles, and dogbane beetles. Now let's talk about what these cucumber beetles are actually doing to your plants. Cucumber beetles are frustrating because they hit your garden from 3 different angles simultaneously. It's not just one problem. It's literally 3 problems wearing a yellow coat. So adult beetles chew holes in leaves, flowers, stems, and fruit. Young seedlings in the cotyledon stage, that's like the very first tiny leaves, are the most vulnerable because the plants are so small that even a couple beetles feeding could just kill them. Once plants have 4 or more true leaves, they generally handle some feeding damage without dying, but the aesthetic damage and stress continues throughout the season. But there's something else potentially happening as the beetle feeds. Turns out these are the primary vector for Erwinia trachyphylla, the bacterium that causes wilt. And this is why/where it comes from. The beetle feeds on wilted infected plants, picks up the bacteria in its gut, and carries it to the next plant it visits. As it feeds, bacteria enter the plant through the feeding wound and begin colonizing the vascular system. Within a week or 2, the plant wilts. First in one stem, then spreading to the whole thing. By the time you notice, the plant is usually already doomed. The real kicker is that there's no cure. You just gotta pull it and try to stop the spread. Bacterial wilt can cause 40 to 80% yield losses in severe outbreaks, particularly in cucumbers and muskmelons. Now, this isn't the only thing they can cause, though. Spotted cucumber beetles can also transmit squash mosaic virus, which causes stunted growth, blotchy discolored leaves, and deformed fruit. Less immediately fatal than bacterial wilt, but it does reduce yield and makes fruit unmarketable. A double whammy if you get both on the same plant, which, by the way, can absolutely happen. The bacterial wilt angle is where the threshold for action is super low. Just one beetle per plant is enough to justify control measures. That's how serious growers take the wilt transmission risk. But what happens from egg to garden menace? Well, both species follow a similar life cycle. Striped and spotted cucumber beetles overwinter as adults in leaf litter, crop debris, and woodland edges near gardens. When temperatures warm up in late April to early June, depending on your latitude, the adults emerge and immediately start feeding and looking for mates. They're attracted to cucurbit plants, things in the gourd family, by a combination of plant chemicals, including cucurbitacins, which are bitter compounds found in the gourd leaves that these beetles have evolved to seek out rather than avoid. But we're going to get more on that in a little bit. Females lay their pale orange-yellow eggs in clusters at the base of host plants, just below or at the soil surface. A female spotted cucumber beetle can lay between 150 and 400 eggs in a lifetime, with some exceptional individuals documented laying up to 1,200. These striped cucumber beetles are slightly less prolific, but still produce enough offspring to cause some real problems. Eggs hatch in about 14 to 21 days. The larvae are white and worm-like with 3 pairs of legs and a dark head. They honestly look like small grubs, and they live entirely underground, feeding on roots and stem tissue. Larval feeding can stunt or kill seedlings when populations are high. After 2 to 3 weeks of root feeding, the larvae pupate in the soil, and then we get the adults to emerge in mid to late summer. The whole cycle from egg to adult takes about 40 to 60 days. In the northern US and Canada, which includes Vermont, there's generally 1 generation per year for striped cucumber beetles. These spotted beetles tend to migrate north from southern states rather than overwintering in the north, arriving later in the season, usually mid-July, which makes them less of a problem in northern gardens than in the south. In warmer southern states, both species can complete 2 or 3 generations per year. Okay, now we can talk about that bitter chemical that I mentioned briefly earlier. This is by far the most interesting biology in the whole episode, and I don't think it gets talked about a whole lot. Cucurbit plants, the gourd family, produce bitter chemical compounds called cucurbitacins. These compounds are the plant's main chemical defense against most herbivores. They taste intensely bitter and are toxic to many insects and animals. Modern cultivated cucumbers and squash have been bred to have very low levels of heat, which is why they taste mild. Wild gourds have much higher levels and are basically inedible to most things. Cucumber beetles, however, have evolved the opposite response. Instead of being repelled by cucurbitacins, they are strongly attracted to them. The chemicals act as a feeding stimulant and attractant. The more of it is, the more appealing it is to cucumber beetles. Spotted cucumber beetles actually absorb that bitter compound from the plants they eat and store them in their tissues. This makes the beetles themselves bitter and unpalatable to predators. They've literally turned the plant's defense chemical into their own defense chemical. Now, this cucurbitacin attraction also has a practical management application: trap cropping. Farmers can plant highly bitter, high cucurbitacin squash varieties at the edges of their fields to attract and concentrate cucumber beetles away from the main crop. Then treat or remove those trap plants. It works because the beetles prefer the bitter plants and cluster on them in very high numbers. I mentioned earlier that the spotted cucumber beetle's larval form is called the southern corn rootworm. Let's unpack that, because it does connect cucumber beetles to one of the most economically significant pest stories in American agriculture. The genus Diabrotica, which includes the spotted cucumber beetle, also contains the western corn rootworm and the northern corn rootworm, collectively known as the corn rootworm complex. These species cause around $2 billion in annual crop losses and control costs across the US Corn Belt every year. The western corn rootworm in particular has become notorious for rapidly evolving resistance to control measures. It evolved resistance to crop rotation by changing its egg-laying behavior to deposit eggs in soybean fields as well as corn. So larvae hatch into a corn crop the following year, even after rotation. Not to be outdone, the northern corn rootworm took a completely different approach and evolved extended diapause. This is when its eggs stay dormant in the soil for an extra year, effectively skipping the soybean rotation completely, and then hatching when corn comes back around. Two species, two completely independent solutions to the same management strategy. That's pretty cool. The spotted cucumber beetle plays a smaller role in the corn rootworm complex than its western and northern relatives, but it's part of the same evolutionary story. The Diabrotica beetles, as a group, are a textbook example of how insects can adapt their behavior in response to agricultural practices with remarkable speed. A cautionary tale for anyone who thinks a single management approach will work indefinitely. So, what can you actually do about them? We're going to get practical. If you grow gourds anywhere in the northeastern US, here's what actually works and what doesn't. Row covers are the most effective non-chemical option available to home gardeners. A floating row cover, the lightweight white fabric you drape over young plants, physically prevents beetles from reaching seedlings during the vulnerable early season window. The key is getting them on before beetles emerge, removing them once plants begin to flower so pollinators can actually access the blooms, and tucking the edges into the soil to prevent beetles crawling underneath. For bacterial wilt prevention especially, this is the single best tool most home gardeners have. Timing and variety selection also matter. Watermelons and mature pumpkins tolerate cucumber beetle feeding much better than cucumbers and muskmelons. If bacterial wilt is your main concern, growing wilt-resistant varieties of cucumber and squash removes the most serious risk entirely. Now there's also trap cropping as discussed, so that's when we're planting a sacrificial row of highly attractive plants like blue Hubbard squash at the edge of your garden. Now we can also encourage natural enemies. We're talking ground beetles, carabidae, and wolf spiders, which have been documented predating cucumber beetle eggs and larvae, and their populations benefit from reduced tillage, cover crops, and avoiding broad-spectrum pesticides. Now, for serious infestations, insecticides are an option, but of course come with significant caveats. Many commonly used insecticides kill pollinators alongside cucumber beetles, which is a serious problem in a garden full of cucurbit flowers that need bee pollination. So if chemical control is necessary, applying in the evening when bees are less active and using targeted rather than broadcast sprays reduces the impact on pollinators. The honest bottom line, though, for home gardeners would probably be row covers on your cucumbers and melons, which you should do until the first flowers, combined with wilt-resistant varieties where available. And with that, we're going to end this episode. As always, if you enjoy, please leave a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Bonus episodes are over at patreon.com/insect4fun, although I'm definitely focusing more heavily on vlogs right now. And of course, you can also hit me up on IG at insects4fun or email insectsfordummies@gmail.com with topics you want covered. And that's it. See ya.